So I titled this Cyber Crimes and Misdemeanors. When I was a youth, I was in a naval program. And the naval program focused on, it was called the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps. And what we did, it was kind of like the ROTC, but it was real intense. So I would always be at the naval station in San Diego. I've been visited other bases throughout the country. And what always impressed me is that when you come onto a military base, you know, you have the armed guards there. They have their M16s. You know, they're checking everybody's pass. They're, you know, making everybody pull over and making sure you are who you are, checking your car, this and that. So in my mind, I view the military as impenetrable, right? You know, no one's going to come into the base and do anything to the military. You know, as a child, you're just like, hey, the U.S. military is the strongest military on earth. Well, lo and behold, even the military has been subject to cybercrime. This just happened on June the 8th, which was last month. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the Syrian Electronic Army hacked onto the Army's website and put this message on there. This message displayed for about 2 hours, I believe, and then at 3:30, the general out of Fort Bragg in charge of public relations came out and said, hey, apparently someone has hacked onto our website. Syrian Electronic Army is taking responsibility. Please do not use our website for a certain amount of time. We're trying to take preventive measures to prevent any data from getting out. So I bring this to your attention just to let you know that no one is impenetrable. Anyone can be subject to an incident. Now, in the interim, what can you do, right? Because if the military is getting hacked, you're like, well, wow, what can I do? Well, what you can do is meet with an attorney and prepare a cyber incident response plan. And what that plan does is it assesses all the various protocols and policies and procedures and what your brand is and puts together the response in the event of emergency. Just like when you were a child, they had a fire drill and everyone would hide under, go outside, or if we had an earthquake drill, you hide under the desk or things of that nature. You have a plan in place so that if something happens, you can quickly respond. Because as you know, if you don't respond and your site is down for an extended period of time, you know, you're losing business, you're losing money, and then people will be less likely to trust your brand. So what are some of the resources that the government has put in place in order to help businesses? Well, some of these resources, depending upon your cyber incident response plan, would be a part of it. So we have obviously the FBI. Los Angeles Police Department has a computer crimes unit. There's a website sponsored by the government that tells you different information from the cyber threat, the On Guard online. California Department of Justice, they have a website devoted to it and staff devoted to it. Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Secret Services. So there's multiple resources, but depending on your business, depending on where you're at and what you do, you want to make sure you tap into the right resources, and that's why I advise getting help so you won't just waste your time calling needlessly places that are not going to be of best interest to you. So what is cybercrime? We're going to talk about specifically what is cybercrime, how do I become a target? If you or your employees work from home, use public access, public Wi-Fi spots, you are subject to being compromised. Those devices are subject to being compromised. And oftentimes, believe it or not, the majority of the times that individuals are subject to cybercrime is if they lose their device. They accidentally leave it somewhere, maybe the luggage gets misplaced on an airplane. Those are ways in which people become victims of cybercrime. Now, let's say you are a victim of a cybercrime. A lot of times it's very stealth what happens. You wouldn't even know someone logged onto your computer. And when they do log in, they're tracking your keystrokes, they're looking at your browser history, they're tapping into your files, and sometimes they can even turn on your mics on the computer and listen and record what you're doing. They have other high-tech devices, depending upon the complexity of your business, where they can turn on your cell phones and listen through those to see what's going on. So these are the type of cybercrimes that we're seeing nowadays. Another resource that you have is the FBI Internet Crimes Complaint Center, and they also help protect you. And they define internet crime as illegal activity involving one or more components of the internet, such as websites, chat rooms, and/or email. And this is a very valuable resource regardless of what happens to log your complaint and the crime with them so that they have a record and that they can do what they do on their end, all their due diligence, because they're working in conjunction with several other government agencies. And I wanted to list for you some of the specific types of malware, malicious software that you should be aware of, such as viruses. We've all heard of viruses, the Trojans, the worms, the spyware, and I was just reflecting on spyware, how it discreetly captures and transmits sensitive information on your computer. The adware, the chargeware, where they charge people for money without their knowledge or consent, ransomware, things of that nature. We buy insurance for everything else, right? So why not buy cyber insurance? I mean, you can't buy insurance for your house after it burns down. You can't buy insurance for your car after you get in a car accident. So it just seems logical that you would purchase cyber insurance, especially if you have a vested online interest in which you're conducting financial business that is vital to your livelihood. However, there are a few issues with cyber insurance. Primarily the fact that they have mistake exclusions in the policy. The policies are extremely thick, they have high deductibles, and they also have a high retainer. However, they have a mistake exclusion in which, not all of them, but several of them have a mistake exclusion in them that if you don't continuously maintain all the data security protocols that you say you have in place at the time you secure the policy, then the policy is no good. Well, isn't that the reason you're getting the policy? Just in case something comes up, right? But believe it or not, the way I've worded it to you is not always how it's worded. A lot of times it's worded in different language, it's hard to decipher, it's bits and pieces, this and that, and that's why it's advisable to have an attorney help you decipher the contract to make sure you're getting the best deal. I was looking at some contracts recently, and I had to go down to maybe the 50th or 60th page of the policy to find some of the words that showed, hey, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. And then, even then, so when you're speaking with that representative, do you find out more information? So I just want to caution you on these type of things. And to show you how relevant this is, May the 7th, 2015, Columbia Casualty Company filed a lawsuit versus Cottage Health Care System here in Los Angeles. Columbia wants to enforce the exclusion barring coverage for a data breach claim that arose out of any failure of the insured to continuously implement the procedures and risk controls identified in the insured's application for this insurance and all related information submitted to the insurer in conjunction with the application, whether orally or in writing. Orally or in writing. So not just what they asserted on the paperwork, but what they said in the conversations, with the way that they felt it was represented to them that they would protect the data. And in fact, Cottage Health System didn't have the breach in this situation. They had a third party managing all the patient's files, and the third party inadvertently allowed a leak by not hitting the proper settings. And so Columbia paid out on it for the class action lawsuit because 32,500 patients' information was publicly displayed on the internet for a few days. But now that they've paid, they're saying, hey, I want my money back. So these are things that, we want to be cognizant of to stay on top of because, you would think, like I said, you're buying the insurance in case of a data breach, so you would think I'm covered. But it doesn't always pan out that way.